Were you training for your first big race, your first half marathon, first world major, first triathlon, and boom, COVID-19 hits? Let's talk race cancellations, postponements, and how race directors are moving forward. This is a Wave Quickie. Hey Wave Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the Run Wave podcast. I am your host Kim, and today we are talking about racing, or the lack of racing in 2020 due to COVID-19. If many of you did or did not know, I was training to run the London Marathon in April. It was a couple weeks ago, actually. And of course, the London Marathon was postponed until October. And I actually got through 10 weeks of training before the postponement was announced. So back in mid-February, the Tokyo Marathon was actually canceled. And well, it was canceled for all runners that were not elite. So I think they were like 200 runners. I could be wrong with that. Don't quote me, but only the elite runners were allowed to run the race in Tokyo, and everyone else was deferred to 2021. Now, this cancellation happened before the coronavirus was running rampant in the United States. So once Tokyo announced their cancellation, I have a London Marathon group on Facebook, where it's a bunch of us American runners, Black American runners that were going to London to run the marathon in 2020. So I went over to the Facebook page and I posted the same day that Tokyo was canceled that let's stay optimistic. London is still going to happen. The virus, I don't think I said the virus wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that bad in the United States and really worldwide at that time. It was still a little bit confined, and I think during that time, I don't know if we had any cases yet, or there were like very few, maybe a handful or so. So I was still optimistic that the race was going to happen. So I kept training. Training went on as usual. I was recording my training. I have you may be watching this right now on YouTube, so you can go and see my training videos through week 10. And I'll also put a link for those videos below if you're listening to the podcast, so you can go take a listen if you're interested in watching those. So that was mid-February. Then came March 8th, the LA Marathon. Now, I was sitting back and patiently waiting and watching and seeing if the LA Marathon would happen, because that was my gauge to see if other big races were going to go on. Because LA Marathon is a pretty big race. It's not like a huge international race, but it's a big enough race that went on during like the early onset of Corona in the United States. And when LA happened, I thought to myself, there's no way London's going to be canceled. London is going to go on. So I kept training as usual for the London Marathon. Now, fast forward, the New York City Half Marathon was scheduled for the week after the LA Marathon, and the New York City Half Marathon was canceled. Now, I was on a high after the LA Marathon ran. I said, yeah, London is a go. New York City Half was a go. And then all of a sudden, New York City Half was canceled. And that's when like all of my hope completely went out the window that the London Marathon was going to happen. And up until that point, there was no word of whether it was on or off yet, but I knew deep down that it really wasn't going to happen. So for me personally, racing in 2020 is canceled. I mean, I have a couple other races that I had registered for, first being Seattle Rock and Roll, which is the first weekend of June, and that's not happening. We received an email saying that the race is not happening, but really nothing other than that. No mention of refunds, no mention of deferment, postponement, new date, nothing. So they claim that they're working on it, but I don't know what's going on with the status of that race at this moment. For London, I was actually a charity runner. I didn't get in through the lottery or the ballot, as they call it. So I registered to run with a charity, and I actually registered even before the ballot results were revealed. So I did enter the ballot, but I knew I wasn't going to get in through the ballot because it's a shot in hell to get into London through the ballot. So I secured my charity place very early on. I'm not going to mention the charity name. You can go look it up. I posted about it heavily on my Instagram. But I secured my charity place very early on, and I finished my fundraising before people even started applying to charities to run the London Marathon. So when the charity sent out a text message asking us if we were running the marathon, I had no clue at that point. We weren't in the thick of it by then. So fast forward a couple of weeks later, I knew that racing was canceled for me. I wasn't running London. So I emailed the charity and let them know that. And they were actually giving me a difficult time about deferring my entry to 2021, which quite honestly really pissed me off because I fundraised for you guys. I supported you guys very early on, and you're giving me a difficult time deferring my registration. And I'm not going to go into detail about this because I will go into detail about it later because it's like the situation just like was dumbfounded me. But yeah, so after a lot of going back and forth, I was able to defer my London Marathon place to 2021. So even if the race does happen in October, which I don't think it is happening, I won't be there. I'll be doing it in April of 2021. God willing. So I just hope the charity does the right thing. I have others that are running with that charity as well that are having problems getting deferment, but just hold out, guys. If the race is canceled, more than likely we all will be moved over to 2021 anyway. So if I didn't get the deferment, that was my plan, to just hold out and wait for the race to be canceled. But I was hoping that the charity would do the right thing anyway. So let's talk about race directors and how they're moving during this worldwide pandemic that we're going through. So New York City they have offered, New York Roadrunners, they offered a deferment to 2021 with paying again or a refund for the New York City half. Now, I don't know how I feel about that because the New York City half is so hard to get into. If you don't live in New York and can't run the borough races to get automatic entry, it's a lottery, and the lottery is another shot in hell to get into. So to ask people who really want to run that race, I mean, they know that people are going to defer that entry and then have to pay again. And I mean, these races are not cheap. That paying that race fee again, it hurts. It hurts on people. People don't have unlimited disposable income to keep paying for races over and over. So, I mean, I don't really know what the answer here is. I mean, I know what I would have wanted. I would have wanted my entry to be deferred to the next year and I wouldn't have to pay again. But, I mean, what can you do? We're really at the mercy of these race directors and the decisions that they are making regarding how these races are going to play out. Now, some races are actually turning into virtual races. Yeah, virtual, meaning you run it by yourself on your own. Now, I don't know how I feel about that either because I can run a virtual race on my own for free. I don't need to pay for a race for them to send me a race shirt that I'm not going to wear and a medal, which I have 1,000 medals right here to run the race on my own. Like I don't sign up for races to run virtual races. I mean, yeah, I know that race directors are in a pinch if their races had to be canceled last minute, and doing the virtual race was probably the only option that they had because I'm sure a lot of the funds for that race were already spent. But I don't know. For me, maybe offering half of a refund and half credit towards next year's race. I don't know, just something. I'm just not the type of person that enjoys doing virtual races unless it's for an organization that I wholeheartedly support and I want to give my money to, because that's what a virtual race is, right? You're giving your money away. That is the only way that I would do virtual racing. So I'm a little disappointed on that, and I understand where they're coming from, but I understand the runner's point of view because I'm a runner and I don't want to do virtual racing. Now, I saw a post from the race Napa to Sonoma Wine Country Half. Now, they have changed their race date to the race weekend to December 12th to the 13th. They gave no option of a refund, no option for a deferment. I mean, like, really, do they think that people want to travel 2 weeks before Christmas? Because this is like a race that's really promoted as a destination race. I'm sure they have a lot of locals that do the race, but a lot of people travel to do the race. And I know if I was registered this year, I would not be traveling to Sonoma to do a race 2 weeks before Christmas. So I looked at the comments under their post and people are pissed. And I can understand why they're pissed as well, because I mean, who's changed? First of all, if you already had a flight booked, hopefully if it was canceled, you've gotten your money back from that flight. If it wasn't canceled, you're changing it to another date, and flight prices have been going up because nobody's flying right now. So you're probably going to have to pay an increase in your flight costs if you even decide to still go to this race. So I can understand why people are pissed off at the race directors for this. And I mean, it's just really ridiculous. Just cancel the race and defer people to next year. I mean, no one is going to travel to this. Not no one. I'm sure some people will go, but a lot of people, from what I've read, are really upset that the race is now 2 weeks before Christmas and they just can't go for one reason or another. Now, Chicago Marathon is also offering race cancellations with a guaranteed place for 2021, but you have to pay for your race again. So who wants to do that? I mean, Chicago is probably one of the easiest world majors to get into. Most people, I know a handful of people, maybe 3, that have not gotten into Chicago Marathon via lottery. Everyone gets into the Chicago Marathon. I got in on my first shot. I think I did it in 2016 or 27. Let me see. Where's my Chicago? Oh, here's my Chicago medal. I did it October 9th, 2016. So I got into the lottery on my first try. So if I was entrant to the Chicago Marathon for this year, I probably would take the cancellation and the refund, because I can always just enter the lottery again and surely we'll get it next year. But I have a feeling that the race will probably be canceled and they will roll everyone over anyway. So it really is a matter of if you want to wait for the cancellation or if you want to take the cancellation now and get the refund. I wouldn't recommend rolling your registration over and paying again, because you're just paying double and you're probably going to buy the lottery again anyway. If not, you can always raise money for charity, which is the route that a lot of people go if they want to really do the major right now. But it's pretty easy to get into Chicago via lottery. So take the cancellation and get your money back, people. Now, here's my take on what I think races, especially the world major marathons, need to do. So Tokyo was canceled. London is postponed until October, which probably won't happen. Paris was changed. Paris is not a world major, but that race was also changed. Boston was changed to the fall. Chicago is offering cancellations also in the fall. New York City and Boston. New York City is the last of the majors. We haven't heard anything from that because that's in November. But I'm registered for New York City. I paid $255 for that race. So if that race is canceled, I want my money back. That is a lot of money to pay for a race. I'm not deferring to next year and paying another $255, which the price will probably go up for 2021. So I'm not paying again. If I want to do it again, I'll figure something out. But if New York City Marathon is canceled, I want my $255 back into my account. That is a lot of money to just give away to a race to not run the race. So I don't want the race poncho. I have 4 blue ponchos sitting in my closet that I have not worn since the zombie walk. Keep your race poncho. I want my money back. So, in conclusion, this is my message to race directors. We know you're hurting. We, the people, are hurting as well. Everyone is hurting during this time. You know, I like to do certain races repeatedly, but my loyalty is fickle. If I feel that a race is not doing right by me or not doing other people, I won't do that race again. So if you have a race in the fall, if you're a race director and this situation has been going on since March, you've had more than enough lead time to make a decision to cancel the race or defer it, everyone, to next year. So I'm registered for some races in the fall, not many, 1 or 2. And I quite honestly don't think that any racing is happening for the rest of this year. So I don't want to see race directors posting on social media like everything is all good and these races are still happening. You guys need to come to terms with reality that most of these races are not happening, and keeping people's money when you've had months and months and months of lead time is wrong. And if I receive a notice from a race that is in the fall that's telling me that this is turning into a virtual race, I'm not registering for that race again. I'm not supporting that. You've had enough time to cancel your race and just, this year is a wash. It's a wash. We've all lost money, everyone. And it's not fair that you've had 7 months to figure things out and you're still planning like things are normal. So think about that. Think about how this is going to affect runners, especially if we're traveling to I mainly travel for races, so I could be losing my air money. Hotels I don't really book until last minute, you know. But other people book prepaid hotel rooms. They're losing money too if the hotels are not canceling. Most hotels are offering cancellations, but places like Airbnb, I know people that are having difficulty getting their money back from Airbnb hosts. So it's like times are hard and you've had enough time to think about this and to do the right thing. So I mean, this is just a tough one. Like, racing is like just totally canceled in 2020. It's like hard to, like in January, no one would have ever thought that this would be the outcome, but this is what it is. And we all have to move and adjust accordingly. So that is all for this Wave Quickie. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm wishing everyone great health and prosperity moving forward. I know this is a hard time. So if you have had coronavirus or know someone that has had coronavirus, I am sending a prayer up for all of you. I hope we can all run together again soon, and I will see you. Well, you'll hear me on the next one. Later. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Be sure to subscribe to The Run Wave on your favorite podcast app and leave us a review of the show on Apple Podcasts. It would really help me out. If you are a runner that has a story to tell and you would like to be on the show, you can email hello@therunwave.com or send us a DM on Instagram to The Run Wave. See you next time.